All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning for our High-Speed Rail Authority pre-bid conference, the request for qualifications for design services for track and overhead contact systems. We can go to the next slide, please. This is an overview of what we'll be covering this morning on this webinar. First, hello again and welcome to everyone. My name is Melissa Figueroa. I'm the Chief of Strategic Communications here at High-Speed Rail. I'll be giving you a project overview for High-Speed Rail shortly. I'll be followed by our small business program overview, which will be given by Chardonnay Valley, our small business advocate. Then we'll do a procurement overview from Bruce Armstead, our Chief of Rail and Operations Delivery. And we will conclude with the organizational conflict of interest overview with Kate Cook, one of our attorneys on staff. Go to the next slide. A few things that are different for this webinar and our day as a whole that I'm sure many of you know, just to give you a little bit of an order of things going on today in our high-speed rail world. Right now, we're doing this virtual pre-bid for the design services for track and overhead contact systems, as I mentioned. At 10:30 this morning, we will do a virtual small business workshop. Attendance to that is not mandatory, of course, but we welcome all participants. To register, you'll use the information there on your screen. Start with our high-speed rail homepage, hsr.ca.gov, then click on business opportunities, then design services for track and overhead contact systems under contract opportunities. Later this afternoon here in Sacramento and also offered virtually, we're going to be doing an in-person virtual combination industry awareness day for our upcoming rail procurements. This is the first time we've done one of these large events in person since COVID, and we're excited to host everyone here in Sacramento who can attend in person. To join virtually, please note that the program does begin at 2 o'clock. There will be some networking opportunities beforehand. You can go to hsr.ca.gov again, and then click on business opportunities and events. And then that's if you're going to join virtually. And if you want to join in person, we will be convening at the California Department of Healthcare Services Auditorium here in downtown Sacramento. The address for that is 1500 Capitol here in Sacramento at the other end of Capitol Park near the Rose Garden. If you want to go to the next slide. Some procurement process details. There's a QR code for those of you who'd like to scan that to just go right to that web page that's listed on the left-hand side of your screen. Or you can go to that hsr.ca.gov business opportunities section that I've mentioned a few times. The website will include video of this pre-bid conference and small business workshop as soon as we get those recordings back. The PowerPoint presentations and registrant lists as well. You can submit procurement questions directly to track design at hsr.ca.gov, and questions on that are due by Wednesday, November 22nd. Give you a second to scan that QR code if you're still trying to make that happen. All right, if we want to go to the next slide. So we'll jump right in. I'm going to give you a brief project overview on the California High-Speed Rail project so that you know where we stand today. If we want to start with the first slide, please. So our program is split into two phases. As most of you know, phase one is 500 miles long between the cities of San Francisco and Los Angeles and Anaheim. It will connect all of the regions in the Central Valley to Northern and Southern California as dictated by state law. Phase two will extend after that, another 300 miles into Sacramento and down into San Diego. Our system is expected to travel at about 220 miles an hour with up to 24 stations. Next slide. Today, we have 119 miles under active construction. That's that yellow section in the middle of your screen there. The 52 miles under advanced design is that lighter, more teal blue that extends into Merced and then down into Bakersfield. We are environmentally clearing all 500 miles between San Francisco and the LA Basin. Today, we have about 422 of those 500 miles cleared. We are partners in funding with the Caltrain electrification program in the Bay Area and the improvements to Los Angeles Union Station in Southern California, as well as numerous grade separation projects for safety in Northern and Southern California. We are doing station design for the first 4 high-speed rail stations in the country here in California: Merced, Fresno, Kings Tulare, and Bakersfield. And we do also have a memorandum of understanding with Brightline West for connectivity and interoperability opportunities with their system that extends from Southern California into Las Vegas. We want to go to the next slide. Some upcoming milestones to be aware of. Completion of the first Central Valley construction segment. Our project is split into 3 construction segments. The southernmost section, which we refer to as construction package or CP4, is expected to be complete late this year or the next year. Caltrain electrification is expected with completion in 2024, next year. The Rosecrans Marquardt grade separation, one of those grade separations that I mentioned we are funding partners in Southern California, is expected to be complete next year as well. And we are continuing with station design advancements on those 4 Central Valley stations. That contract award was awarded last year, and we're making great progress on the design of those stations. Next slide. To date, we've employed more than 11,400 men and women in labor on this project. That's something we're quite proud of. We have created more than 1,400 construction jobs each day on those job sites. We have about 25 active construction sites daily along 119 miles. 70% of those workers are from disadvantaged communities. 812 small businesses are employed. 282 of those are disadvantaged business enterprises, and 99 are disabled veteran business enterprises. We are leading the nation in sustainability, both during construction and then in the future when we're in operation. We're expected to run on 100% renewable energy. We are currently using Tier 4 equipment on all of our construction. And when in operation, we expect to reduce vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, by taking about 400,000 cars off the road each year. Next slide. And I will now turn it over to Chardonnay, who's our small business advocate, who will lead you through some information on her unit. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melissa. Good morning, everyone. I am Chardonnay Valley, and I oversee the small business program, and my team will be your point of contact for all your small business needs. My contact information is listed on the bottom of the slide, and I will place my team's email in the chat. Next slide, please. We have a good number of businesses that are already performing on the contract, a total of 812 that come from all over the state. As you'll see on the map, it designates where they are essentially located. We also have 28 small businesses that are from outside the state. In order to meet your goal and in accordance with the Small Business Disabled Veteran Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, or SBDVBE program, as we refer to it, you will need a designated small business officer that is responsible for being the point of contact for all things SB, DVBE, and DBE. This person will work closely with my team, and once the contract is executed and a small business officer is designated, my team will hold a kickoff to go over the small business requirements in more detail. The small business team is dedicated to supporting your project's success. Whether you require hosting a workshop or generating interest for upcoming procurements or task orders within your contract, we are committed to working together to meet your objectives. Previously, the authority had a 30% overall goal inclusive of 10% DBE and 3% DVBE. The authority's board of directors approved goal changes to the SB DVBE DBE program, and all contracts executed after November 2nd, 2023 will have a new goal structure. Each contract goal will be expressed separately based on federal and state requirements. Next slide, please. For blended contracts, which is currently how the majority of authority contracts are classified, they contain both state and federal dollars, including grants. We will continue to apply a 3% DVBE and 10% DBE goal, which will be applied across the total contract value. And we will apply a 25% small business goal on the state portion of the contract. Of that 25%, we will carve out a 3% micro business goal as outlined on this slide. Please note that this contract has blended funds and will therefore have this goal application. The next 2 slides will show examples of contracts with 100% state or federal funds. Next slide, please. For 100% state-funded contracts, the authority will apply a 3% DVBE goal and a 25% small business goal using all categories that qualify under the state standard, which includes certified small businesses and small business public works, or SBPW. Of that 25%, we will designate 3% micro business. Next slide, please. For 100% federally funded, including any grant contracts, the authority will apply a 17% DBE goal. Next slide, please. The authority is committed to diversity, but we are not a certifying agency. We partner with a couple of different agencies to utilize their certification designations, as you see listed here on the slide. Anytime you want to bring a business on board, they have to be certified with these departments here, and their certification must be current and valid. You will want to make sure that throughout the time your small businesses are performing on a contract, that their certifications are continuously updated. Most of these certifications carry a 1 to 2 year term before they need to be renewed, but it is their responsibility to make sure that their certifications are current. The California Department of General Services offers the Small Business Certification, Micro Business Certification, and SBPW, or Small Business Public Works, which includes firms who specifically work on public works. The SBPW is beneficial for small firms that have graduated out of the DGS Small Business Program as a result of having worked on this project. The SBPW goes up to 38 million gross annual receipts, increasing every year by 1 million until it reached 40 million. And they can still qualify as a small business. DGS also offers the Disabled Veteran Business Enterprise, also known as the DVBE cert. The California Unified Certification Program, or CUCP, which is a disadvantaged enterprise certification offered by a consortium of agencies throughout California. Caltrans is the agency in Sacramento that offers this certification statewide. There are various other agencies that offer the certification statewide, including the Bay Area Rapid Transit and in Southern California, LA Metro. So businesses are able to choose the agency in their region. If you have any firms trying to join your team with this certification, please let them know it takes several months to get certified. Please keep in mind that anything federal will take longer to process, but these certifications listed here are the only certifications we accept, and they do have to be certified at the time they are brought onto the contract, during execution, and throughout the duration of the contract. Next slide, please. Exclusivity. The authority does not prohibit sub-consultants or subcontractors being exclusive to one offeror, but we do strongly discourage this practice. Next slide, please. This slide covers the Connect HSR vendor registry. We encourage all businesses to register with the Connect HSR. It's free, it's online, and simple to complete. Businesses who register will be notified of opportunities and workshops hosted by HSR and other agency partners, and can learn about how HSR does business. So we encourage businesses to join and register. If you need more information on getting registered, please reach out to me and I will put you in contact with someone from my team that can help you with the process. Thank you for your time today. If you have any questions for the SB DBE program, please send your email to the sbprogram@hsr.ca.gov, and I will drop that in the chat as I mentioned earlier. Additionally, please join us at 10:30 for our workshop on more small business details, certifications, and how to partner with firms. We encourage all businesses to participate in the small business workshop, where we will take a deeper dive into compliance and certification eligibility. Now let's welcome our next presenter, Bruce Armistead, the Chief of Rail and Operations Delivery.
Thank you, Chardonnay. Next slide, please. The purpose of this procurement, we've issued a request for qualifications to receive SOQs from qualified bidders for the track and overhead contact system design services. The RFQ is to award an agreement to the successful offer for the design of track, overhead contact systems, and the elements that cover the entire guideway from Merced to Bakersfield. This is a professional services contract and is critical for achieving certification from the FRA. Next slide, please. A little bit about our procurement strategy. As you can see there, package one is the track and overhead contact systems. And we've determined that delivering this via CMGC is the best way for the authority to do that. The one that we're talking about today is package 1A, which is designed for the track and overhead contact systems. And as you know, we released the RFQ November 3rd of 2023. We expect to release package 1B in quarter 2 of 2024. And package 2, which is our systems, signaling, train control, core communications, and traction power, along with SCADA. That contract, we expect to release the RFQs in quarter 2 of 2024, and we are still working through some of the details of those scopes. Package 3 are train sets. We have RFQs. The RFQ was on the street in quarter 3, and we've received solicitations. Package 4, depots and facilities. We're still working through the packaging details of that, and the support contracts are as you see them at the bottom with their indicative timing for release. Next slide, please. Contract term will be about 6 years and 8 months. The initial contract value will be $131 million, not to exceed, with the total value of $161. That includes the potential for extensions. For the extensions, which I'll review on coming slides, this will be a qualification-based procurement. Fair and reasonable fees and costs will be negotiated with the top rank offerer prior to contract execution. And compliance with the current small business program requirements as described by Chardonnay will be essential for this contract. Next slide, please. Scope of work is high-level designs for track and OCS for the entire 171, and then detailed design for the 119-mile section from Madera to Poplar Avenue. Design of track system will include the sub-ballast layer, OCS, along with cable containment, cross-track ducts, walkways, fencing, drainage, etc. The contractor will be required to manage the technical and non-technical interfaces and with interfacing contractors. They'll have to work collaboratively with the interfacing contractors, including the CMGC that will be selected in a future procurement, and to construct the track and OCS systems designed to this contract. Next slide, please. Notice to proceed 1. This will include the initial deliverables, project management plan, quality management plan, etc. The high-level design of the OCS system from Merced to Bakersfield. NTP2 will be the detailed design from Madera to Merced, and NTP3 will be the detailed design for the LGA, which is from Poplar Avenue to Bakersfield. And these NTPs can be given concurrently. Next slide, please. This is a zoom in of the map on the previous slide. As you can see there, the high-level design NTP1 is for what we call our early operating segment, which would be Merced to Bakersfield. This will be our revenue service segment. The FCS, which is the NTP1's detailed design area, that's from Madera to Poplar Avenue, and that will also include design services during construction. The NTP2 from Merced to Madera, that will be the NTP where we give the authorization notice to proceed for the detailed design for that area. And similarly, NTP3 will be the detailed design for that. Again, these NTPs can be issued concurrently, so they're not consecutive work. It may be concurrent. Next slide, please. Evaluation and performance. The SOQs will be evaluated and scored by an evaluation selection committee pursuant to the established criteria in the RFQ. Pre-award audits will be conducted concurrent with negotiations prior to execution, and the contract includes a provision for a performance-based fee structure. Key performance indicators must be met to earn the fee. The performance-based fee range will be negotiated in the task order. Those numbers will be limited to 8% to 11% and will be based on excellent performance and other factors. Next slide, please. Procurement process details. The California State Contracts Register will include these procurements. The RFQ can be downloaded from the webpage you see there. Updates, including responses and written questions, will also be posted there. The authority's webpage and email address to submit questions is shown below. And information from this pre-bid and other workshops will be posted on our website. Items will be posted as you see there. And that is the email for questions about this procurement. Next slide, please. More detailed procurement schedule. RFQ, as I mentioned, was advertised on November 3rd. This pre-bid conference today, November 15th. The deadline for questions is November 22nd. SOQs are due on January 22nd. We expect to release a NOPA, a Notice of Proposed Award, February 16th, and we'll be taking that to our board in April, along with the NTP for execution of the first piece of work. Then NTP 2 and 3 are the date to be determined. There's a table in the RFQ that gives additional details about the procurement schedule. Next slide, please. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Catherine Cook, who's supporting us in this procurement. Catherine.
Good morning. I'm Kate Cook. I'm an attorney here at the High Speed Rail Authority, and I'm going to go over the authority's organizational conflict of interest policy today. Next slide. So any entity that wants to enter a contract with the authority is required to comply with our organizational conflict of interest policy. We have this policy for a number of reasons, one of which is that our federal grants that we have with the FRA require us to have the policy. It also ensures a fair and transparent procurement process under which we can maximize competition and also minimize any exposure to bid protests and ensure that our program keeps moving along on schedule. It also makes sure that we comply with state and federal procurement laws and regulations. Next slide. Under the policy, we define an organizational conflict of interest as a circumstance arising out of a contractor's existing or past activities, business or financial interests, familial relationships, contractual relationships, and your organizational structure, including, parent entities, subsidiaries, affiliates, etc. Any of those relationships that your firm has, if they would result in either an impairment of the firm's ability to render impartial assistance to the authority, or if they would result in your firm having an unfair competitive advantage in a procurement, or even a perception of either of those things. That's how we define an organizational conflict. Next slide. So here's a few examples of what we mean by that definition. The most common situations where we would find an organizational conflict are listed here. The first is that a contractor has an unfair competitive advantage. There's a few ways this could come about. One would be the contractor was actually part of the group that developed a procurement. In that situation, obviously, they have an unfair competitive advantage and they would not be permitted to participate in that procurement. Or another situation, which we work very hard to prevent with our secure procurements. Another situation would be where a contractor somehow got access to non-public information that resulted in them having an unfair competitive advantage. The key with this one is that we can never eliminate all advantages, and the law and all the regulations recognize that. It's really about whether it's an unfair competitive advantage. So we work hard to have a level playing field, but it's never perfect. But that's why our policy builds in a lot of different factors and flexibility. The next common situation where we find an organizational conflict that we have to be concerned about would be if a contractor's objectivity would be compromised in the way it's performing its contract. So an example under this situation would be a contractor is awarded the contract to build the widget factory, and then this contractor is also seeking to win the contract for the construction management work overseeing the building of the widget factory. So obviously we want to make sure that the oversight contractor is not overseeing, accepting its own work. So that would be an organizational conflict. Next slide. So just because we find an organizational conflict of interest could or does exist, doesn't necessarily mean that contractor would be prohibited from participating in the procurement. Every case is different, and the vast majority of the ones we look at do result in contractors being able to participate, sometimes with mitigation, sometimes without. But our policy has a lot of flexibility embedded in it to ensure that we have as much competition as we can while also maintaining a fair and transparent procurement process. So if we do recognize a potential conflict, we are required to consider a group of factors and determine whether we might be able to mitigate that conflict, put up some safeguards like ethical walls and other things to prevent the conflict from actually coming to fruition. Next slide. So this slide talks about our process. In this RFQ in particular, section 3.7 goes over the basics, and there's a link to our policy. It's also really easy just to find our policy if you go to the homepage of hsr.ca.gov and put in organizational conflict of interest in the search function. That'll take you to the policy as well. We encourage you to read the policy and seek a determination if you need one. We do not require, pre-clearance. So if you are hoping to participate in this procurement, you're not required to have a clearance letter from the authority. Certain teams might be asking you for that, and that's fine. But we encourage you to look at the policy and determine if you might have a conflict. If you've never worked on our program or you've never worked with any of our prime contractors, then chances are low you would have one. But if you're ever in doubt, please go ahead and submit the request for a determination. You'll also, as part of the RFQ or SOQ submission, be submitting a disclosure statement, which you must sign under penalty of perjury for each firm that's part of a team, disclosing any potential conflicts, any contracts you have with the authority, so that we have all the information we need to make sure everyone's clear for participation. Next slide. So if you feel you need to get a determination, please send that request to legal@hsr.ca.gov. Reference this RFQ, it's number HSR 2332, and we will review your request, likely send you an email asking for a lot of information, particularly any current contracts you're working on and the details of the scope of work and deliverables that you hope to do on this contract. If you can include that in your request, it'll speed it up and we'll be able to get you a determination letter sooner. The review goes through several layers of analysis and review, and then our chief counsel makes the final decision. And if there's an issue with the final decision, you are welcome to get in touch with her to raise any concerns. Next slide. That is the end of our pre-bid webinar for this. This is the email and QR code again for this procurement. If you have any questions, send them to trackdesign@hsr.ca.gov. They're due a week from today on November 22nd. And as Melissa mentioned at the beginning, we will be getting the PowerPoint and the recording of this and the registration lists up as soon as they are available. Next slide. And another reminder, today we have a small business workshop at 10:30 to 11:30. You can register at our website. Go to hsr.ca.gov, business opportunities, then click on the design services for track and overhead contact systems page, and there'll be a link to the small business workshop. And then at 1:30, we're having our hybrid in-person and virtual industry awareness day that's going to be covering the many different rail procurements we have coming up over the next several months. And that will be down the street at 1500 Capitol. And you can also join virtually at the same location under business opportunities and events. And there should be a link if you need to sign up virtually. It does start at 2. The 1:30 to 2 p.m. slot is for networking. Thanks again, and please send any questions to the trackdesign@hsr.ca.gov.